I'm Mary, 29, an accountant. I've always been the kind of person who thrives on order and predictability. But then, life threw me a curveball named Mike. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party. The moment I walked in, I spotted him across the room, laughing loudly, the center of attention. I was content to stay in the background, but my friend, Jess, had other ideas. "Mary, you've got to meet Mike. He's hilarious," Jess insisted, dragging me over to him. I remember thinking, this is going to be awkward, but to my surprise, it wasn't. Mike was easygoing, his laughter infectious. I found myself laughing more in that one evening than I had in months. "Hey, I'm Mike." "And you are?" he asked with a smile that reached his eyes. "Mary. Nice to meet you," I replied, a bit more enthusiastically than I intended. He cracked a joke about accountants being party animals in disguise, and I couldn't help but laugh. We spent the rest of the evening chatting. He was into graphic design, loved indie music, and had a passion for cooking. I remember leaving the party feeling lighter, happier. Mike had this way of making everything seem fun and exciting. Over the next few weeks, we saw a lot of each other. He'd show up at my apartment with takeout from the newest restaurant in town or tickets to a concert. "Life's too short for routines, Mary. Gotta mix it up," he'd say. I was drawn to his spontaneity, a stark contrast to my structured life. He had this knack for pulling me out of my comfort zone, and I loved it. But I started to notice little things. Like how he'd casually drop $100 on a night out without a second thought, or how he'd switch jobs because he got bored with the old one. I tried talking to him about it once. We were at my place, and I broached the subject as delicately as I could. "Mike, don't you think you should be a bit more careful with money? And maybe stick with a job longer?" He just laughed it off. "Mary, you worry too much. Life's about having fun. Money, jobs, they come and go." I wanted to argue, to explain that that's not how the world works, but I didn't. I let it slide, telling myself that it was just Mike being Mike. When he proposed, it was out of the blue. We were walking in the park, and he just blurted it out. "Marry me, Mary. Let's make this adventure official." It was impulsive, irrational, and completely Mike. And I said yes. We moved in together, into my house. It seemed like the perfect start to our life together. And I thought, maybe, just maybe, opposites could really attract and hold together. The days of laughter and impromptu adventures with Mike gradually gave way to a sobering reality. His carefree attitude, once the source of our connection, started to feel more like a growing divide. It was a Thursday evening when the first major crack appeared. I had stayed late at work to catch up on some demanding accounts. Tired and hungry, I arrived home, hoping for a quiet night. Instead, I walked into a scene that looked like the aftermath of a shopping spree. Bags from various stores were strewn across the living room, and there was Mike, lounging on the sofa with a self-satisfied grin. "Mary, you're home. Look at these deals I found today," he exclaimed, gesturing towards the bags. I dropped my keys on the table, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. "Mike, we talked about this last week, about saving money and cutting down on unnecessary expenses." He shrugged, flipping through a magazine. "Yeah, but these were on sale. Besides, we needed some of these things." I picked up a receipt from one of the bags and felt my heart sink. "Needed? Mike, these are luxury items, not essentials. We have a budget for a reason." Mike looked up, his expression shifting from casual to defensive. "Come on, Mary, don't be such a killjoy. We deserve to treat ourselves once in a while." I sighed, trying to keep my voice calm. "It's not about being a killjoy, Mike. It's about being responsible. We have bills, a mortgage, and we agreed to save for a rainy day." He rolled his eyes and tossed the magazine aside. "You always make a big deal out of everything. Can't you just relax for once?" Then, one morning, I found an envelope addressed to Mike on the dining table. It was from his workplace. Curious, I opened it and felt my world tilt. Mike had resigned from his job without a word to me. When he finally came down for breakfast, I confronted him, the letter in my hand. "Mike, what is this? You quit your job? Why didn't you discuss it with me first?" He poured himself coffee, unfazed. Yeah, I quit. That job was a dead end, Mary. I need something better, something that excites me. But how are we going to manage our expenses? We need 2 incomes, Mike. You know this, I said, my voice rising with frustration. He shrugged, taking a sip of his coffee. We'll figure it out. We always do. You need to stop worrying so much. How can I not worry? We have financial commitments, Mike. This is not just about you or me, it's about us, our future, I argued, trying to make him see reason. Mike set down his cup with a thud. I can't deal with this right now, Mary. You're suffocating me with all this talk about money and responsibility. I watched in disbelief as he walked away, leaving me standing in the kitchen, letter in hand, feeling more alone than ever. Mike's unemployment, which initially seemed like a short-term hiccup, rapidly grew into a persistent source of stress and contention in our household. Each morning, as I prepared for work, I'd find Mike in the same spot on the couch, engrossed in either the TV or his phone. The sight became a painful reminder of our growing financial strain. Mike, it's been weeks since you quit your job. Have you started looking for something new? I asked one morning, trying to mask the concern in my voice as I adjusted my work badge. He barely glanced up from his phone. Yeah, I'm looking. Nothing's caught my eye yet. I'm waiting for the right opportunity. His nonchalant reply irked me. Right opportunity? We have bills piling up, Mike. We can't wait forever. He finally looked up, his expression a mix of annoyance and indifference. Mary, you need to chill. I know what I'm doing. I'll find something soon. Days turned into weeks, and the situation at home remained unchanged. I began to take on extra hours at work to keep up with our financial obligations, my exhaustion growing with each passing day. One evening, I came home to an unexpected scene. The living room was littered with pizza boxes and empty beer cans. Mike was sprawled on the couch, snoring lightly. The TV blared in the background. Mike, I called out, frustration evident in my tone. He stirred and blinked at me sleepily. What's up? He mumbled, rubbing his eyes. What's up? Look at this mess. And dinner? Were you planning to cook tonight? I asked, my patience wearing thin. He sat up, yawning. Oh, I forgot. Got caught up with the game. Grab something on your way home next time. I felt a surge of anger. I'm working extra hours to make ends meet, Mike. The least you could do is help around the house. He stood up, stretching lazily. I didn't ask you to work extra. You're choosing to stress yourself out. The conversation escalated quickly. Choosing to stress out? Mike, if I don't, how are we going to survive? You're sitting here doing nothing while I'm out there trying to keep us afloat. Mike's expression hardened. I'm not doing nothing. I'm trying to find a job. You think I like being stuck at home? Trying? By sitting on the couch all day? You're not even trying, Mike. This isn't what I signed up for when we got married. I shot back, my voice tinged with both anger and sadness. Mike scoffed. Well, sorry for not living up to your perfect standards, Mary. I didn't realize I married a nag. I was taken aback by his harsh words. A nag? Is it too much to ask for a partner who contributes? I don't understand how you can be so relaxed about our situation. He grabbed his jacket, heading towards the door. I need some air. I can't deal with this right now. The tension in our home had reached a boiling point. Every conversation with Mike about responsibility and our future ended in a heated argument, leaving a cold silence in its wake. I was tired, both physically from the extra hours at work and emotionally from the constant strain at home. One evening, as I sat at the kitchen table, sorting through bills and trying to make the numbers work, I realized something had to give. Mike, I began, my voice steady but firm, we need to talk. This can't go on any longer. He glanced up from his phone, his expression indifferent. What now, Mary? It's about your job situation. Or rather, the lack of one. It's been months, Mike. We're sinking here, and you don't seem to care, I said, the frustration evident in my tone. Mike let out a heavy sigh. Here we go again. Look, I'm trying, okay? You think I enjoy this? You think I like seeing you stressed all the time? Then do something about it. Find a job, any job. We need 2 incomes, Mike. We agreed on this when we got married. I shot back, my patience wearing thin. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You think it's so easy, huh? Just snap my fingers and a job appears? You don't get it, Mary. The market's tough. I need something that suits me. Something that suits you? I repeated, incredulous. We don't have the luxury of waiting for the perfect job, Mike. We have bills, a mortgage, responsibilities. Mike paced the room, running his hands through his hair. I can't deal with this pressure, Mary. It's constant with you. Nag, nag, nag. I stood up, facing him. This is not about nagging, Mike. This is about our life, our future. If you can't understand that, then maybe this isn't going to work. Mike stopped pacing, his eyes meeting mine. What are you saying? I took a deep breath. I'm saying that if you don't find a job, if you don't start taking our situation seriously, then maybe we need to rethink this marriage. The words hung heavy in the air between us. Mike's face hardened, and for a moment, he said nothing. Then, without a word, he grabbed his jacket and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I sat back down, my hands trembling slightly. I hadn't meant for it to come to this, but the endless cycle of arguments and indifference had worn me down. Days passed with no word from Mike. The silence was both a relief and a worry. Then, late one evening, my phone rang, jolting me out of my thoughts. It was the hospital. Mrs. Smith? Your husband, Mike Smith, was brought in after an accident. He's stable, but he sustained some injuries. The news hit me like a punch to the stomach. I rushed to the hospital, my mind racing with worry and 1,000 unanswered questions. The sterile, impersonal atmosphere of the hospital was a sharp contrast to the emotional turmoil I was feeling. Sitting beside Mike's hospital bed, I watched him, his leg in a bulky cast, his face reflecting pain and vulnerability. It was a side of Mike I hadn't seen before, and it stirred a complex mix of emotions within me. As Mike's eyes fluttered open, he squinted at me, confusion giving way to realization. Mary? You're here, his voice was weak, laden with a mix of guilt and relief. I forced a smile, trying to keep the conversation light. Yeah, I'm here. How are you feeling? He winced as he tried to adjust his position. Like I'd been run over. Which, I guess, isn't far from the truth. What did the doctors say? They said you were lucky. The injury could have been worse. It's a severe fracture, and you'll need time to heal, I explained, watching his face for a reaction. Mike exhaled deeply, his eyes meeting mine. Mary, I'm sorry. I've been such a fool, and now this, his voice trailed off. I sighed, feeling a wave of conflicting feelings. Mike, we can sort through all that later. Right now, you need to focus on getting better. But he persisted, a hint of urgency in his tone. No, I need to say this. I've been self-centered, and I've put you through so much. This accident, it's made me see things differently. I listened, unsure of how to respond. I appreciate you saying that, Mike. But it's going to take more than words to fix what's been broken. He nodded solemnly. I know, and I want to make it right. I'll find a job as soon as I'm able. I'll help out more around the house, whatever it takes. The conversation was briefly interrupted by the nurse who came in to check on Mike's vitals. After she left, we resumed our talk. Mike, it's not just about the job or the housework. It's about us, our relationship. We've been drifting apart, and it's going to take effort to bridge that gap, I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. He reached out, taking my hand. I know I've messed up, Mary. But this accident, lying here, all I could think about was you. How much you mean to me, and how I've taken you for granted. I felt a lump in my throat. His words were touching, yet I was cautious. I want to believe you, Mike. I really do. But we've had so many false starts. I need to see that you're serious about this change. The nurse returned, her cheerful demeanor a stark contrast to the heavy mood. We're going to start some mild physiotherapy soon, It'll be a journey, but you're in good hands. After she left, Mike looked at me, a newfound resolve in his eyes. I know it's going to be a long road, but I want you with me, Mary. If you're willing to give me that chance. Bringing Mike home from the hospital marked the beginning of a new, challenging chapter in our lives. His broken leg meant he was confined to the bed or the couch, and his dependence on me for the simplest of tasks was a stark change from his previous self-reliance. The first few days were a flurry of adjusting to the new routine. I juggled my work commitments with playing nurse to Mike. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I came home to find Mike glaring at the TV, a frown etched on his face. Mike, how are you feeling? Do you need anything? I asked, dropping my bag and kicking off my shoes. He turned his head, his expression sour. Where have you been? I've been calling out for help to get to the bathroom, and you were nowhere. I felt a twinge of guilt mixed with frustration. I had to stay late at work, Mike. You know my job is demanding. I can't just leave whenever I want. He scoffed. Well, maybe your job shouldn't be more important than your husband. As the days went on, Mike's demands grew. He wanted specific meals at specific times, his medication handed to him on the dot, and constant attention. If something wasn't to his liking, he made sure to voice his displeasure. One Saturday, I spent hours preparing his favorite dish, hoping it would lift his spirits. As I set the plate down in front of him, he looked at it and then up at me with disdain. This is what you made? It's too salty. Can't you do anything right? I felt my patience snap. Mike, I've been running around all day, trying to take care of you and keep up with everything else. A little appreciation wouldn't hurt. He sneered, pushing the plate away. Appreciation? For this? I'm stuck in this bed because of my leg, and all I ask is for a decent meal. I stood up, my hands trembling with anger. You know what, Mike? I'm not your servant. I'm your wife, and I deserve some respect. Mike's eyes flashed with anger. Respect? You want respect? How about respecting my condition? I'm the one who's suffering here. As I walked away to cool down, I realized that the man I was trying to help was becoming increasingly unrecognizable. The sweet, apologetic person I had seen in the hospital had vanished, replaced by someone who seemed to take pleasure in belittling me at every turn. That fateful day, I returned home from work earlier than usual. The house, usually quiet during these hours, echoed with an unfamiliar sound of laughter coming from Mike's room. My heart pounding, I tiptoed closer, a sense of dread growing with each step. Peering through the slightly open door, I saw Mike, animated and cheerful, chatting on the phone. Oh yeah, I've settled in quite well here, he said with a laugh. Mary doesn't have a clue. My breath caught in my throat. Who was he talking to? What was he talking about? A cold shiver ran down my spine as I processed his words. I backed away, my mind racing, then loudly re-entered the house, slamming the door to announce my presence. I composed myself and walked into his room. Mike, hearing the door slam, quickly changed his demeanor and ended the call. Mary, you're back, he said, feigning weakness. Hey, how are you feeling? I asked, masking my turmoil with a concerned smile. Just the same, you know, he replied, avoiding my gaze. The next day, I contacted a private detective, someone I knew from a previous work case. I need you to find out everything about my husband's activities, I told him over the phone. And there's a woman he might be involved with. While the detective did his work, I played the part of the dutiful wife. It was agonizing, acting as if everything was normal when every instinct screamed that my world was falling apart. 2 weeks later, the detective got back to me. The news was worse than I had imagined. Mike had been in an accident with his mistress, who was listed in the police reports. The detective provided me with her name, and a quick search on social media revealed her profile, filled with pictures of her and Mike looking intimately close. But there was more. The detective had uncovered Mike's gambling debts, a staggering amount that threatened to drown us financially. I sat in the living room, the evidence of Mike's betrayal laid out before me, feeling a mix of anger, disbelief, and heartache. How best to unveil his deceit? How to make him realize the gravity of his betrayal? For now, I kept these thoughts to myself, waiting for the right moment to turn the tables. The morning light filtered through the curtains as I steeled myself for the confrontation ahead. Entering Mike's room, where he lay with his broken leg, I braced myself for the performance of a lifetime. "Mike, I need to talk to you about something important," I said, my voice calm but firm. He looked up, irritation flashing across his face. "What now, Mary? Can't you see I'm in pain here?" I maintained my composure. "I've made a decision for your better care. You're being moved to a state medical facility tomorrow. They're equipped to handle your rehabilitation more effectively." Mike's expression turned from annoyance to panic. "What? No, you can't do that. I want to stay here, with you." "I'm sorry, Mike, but this is for the best. I'll start packing your things," I said, turning towards the door. As I closed it behind me, I heard the frantic rustling of sheets and Mike's hurried voice calling someone on the phone. "She's sending me to some facility. You have to help me." About an hour later, a car pulled up outside. Mike's mistress barged into our house, her face a mask of determination and concern. She marched directly to Mike's room, with me trailing behind. "I'm here to take him with me. He's not going to any facility," she declared, her voice laced with a sense of ownership. I followed her into the room, my heart pounding but my face calm. "I'm glad you're here. This was all a setup to get you to show your hand." Mike and his mistress exchanged a look of confusion and fear. "What are you talking about, Mary?" Mike asked, his voice quivering. I held up the evidence collected by the detective, photos of them together. "This is the proof of your affair. I'll be seeking compensation for this betrayal." The mistress laughed, though her eyes betrayed her nervousness. "I can pay whatever you want. He's coming with me." My smile was thin, but confident. "You should know, he's neck-deep in gambling debts, and without a job, he can't afford his medical bills or insurance. Are you ready to handle all that?" Her face went pale, the implications of what I'd said slowly sinking in. Mike's eyes darted between us, a look of utter helplessness on his face. "But I can't deal with all that," she stammered, her confidence crumbling. "Seems like he's your problem now," I said with a cold finality, turning to leave the room. The following weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. I filed for divorce, ensuring I received a fair settlement for Mike's betrayal and deceit. His mistress, now burdened with his financial and medical responsibilities, quickly found herself overwhelmed. Rumors reached me over time about their strained relationship, riddled with arguments and financial woes. Mike's downfall was a tale of his own making, and his mistress was now ensnared in the web of consequences. As for me, I found solace in my newfound freedom and independence. The betrayal had been painful, a stark lesson in trust and deception. Yet, it also imparted a strength I never knew I had. I moved forward with my life, emboldened by my resilience and determined to find happiness on my own terms, free from the shadows of deceit and betrayal.